Of all of the Straw Hats, the one who is simultaneously the most overrated and the most underrated is Usopp. I generally really like most of the Straw Hats, and Usopp has been kind of hit or miss for me. But even if he is not my personal favorite, he's definitely an interesting character, and one that many people just write off as being comic relief. Or a god, but either way, every member of the Straw Hats has a personality that is a constant balancing act. Luffy is both carefree and completely devoted to making people's dreams come true. Zoro is both savage and completely centered. And that leads us to the third member of the Straw Hat Pirates, Usopp. Out of each crew member, Usopp's balancing act is easily the most simple, but also the most impactful. And because of that, today we're taking a look at the question, who is Usopp? Before we get into this, a big thank you to one of my oldest subscribers, Jonathan, for suggesting this video. If you guys enjoy this one, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more anime content. But with all that behind us, let's jump into it. Okay, so the first and most obvious thing about Usopp is that he doesn't belong. Of all of the first four members of the Straw Hats, we have Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, and Luffy, because Nami hadn't quite joined the crew yet, technically. Three of those are absolute monsters. And then we have Usopp, who's just some guy. Usopp is basically the One Piece fan who is always saying that they would do anything to be brought into the series. His greatest wish is to become a great warrior of the sea, but at the same time, he's probably one of the most fearful and cowardly characters in the series. And with good reason. Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro aren't the only monsters out there. From Arlong the Fishman to Miss Merry Christmas to Eneru, who can pass as a literal god. The difference between what Usopp wants most and who he is as a person is what makes him such an interesting character. When Usopp shines most is in the points in the story where these two parts of his character overlap and where he needs to prove himself. Usopp will always be the first one to lie and do anything and everything in his power to avoid confrontation or any scary situation. After all, his defining traits are that he's a coward and a liar. But in the moments where something he truly cares about is in danger, he will become the great warrior of the sea that he always dreamed of being. And before getting into those scenes, I should clarify. To Usopp, being a great warrior of the sea doesn't mean that he never loses a fight or that he becomes the next Kaido. It doesn't even mean that he needs to get rid of every shred of fear in him. Instead, to Usopp, being a great warrior of the sea means that you are willing to get up, face your fears, and take on whatever challenge is in front of you, so that you can protect what matters most. There's a good handful of scenes throughout the series where Usopp embraces this mentality, and he doesn't always win the fights that follow, but he definitely rises to the occasion in a way that makes even the people who dislike him as a character talk about how awesome those moments were. The first time I remember really feeling this about Usopp was in Arlong Park. Nami just broke down in tears, completely helpless and hopeless against Arlong, and Luffy puts his hat on her, and begins walking to Arlong Park with Usopp, Sanji, and Zoro at his side. Each of them takes on a different Fishman, with Usopp matching against Chu. He begins the fight by just kind of running away, but eventually stops himself, saying that he joined the crew and came out to sea because he wanted to laugh with them, he wanted to be a part of the crew. He wanted to be more than he was in Syrup Village. And that if he can't step up when he's needed, he doesn't deserve to be on the crew. He turns and makes an attack, and the Fishman just runs right through it and flattens him in one punch. Chu starts kicking him while he's on the ground, and Usopp reaches for his bag, grabs a hammer, and hits Chu's leg. Then pulls out a rubber band, aims it at Chu's face, and makes him flinch. When the Fishman eventually opens his eyes, Usopp is hidden, talking to himself and saying that he will prove to Kaya and the Usopp pirates that he is done pretending. He's a real pirate now. He throws a bottle of sake at Chu, pops it open with his slingshot, and covers the Fishman in alcohol. Chu rushes towards him, and Usopp lights him on fire before taking him down with about 30 hits to the head with a hammer. I like this scene a lot because it shows a lot about Usopp. He isn't a fighter, he's a sniper and a tactician. Even against a stronger opponent, we can see him take a W if he gets some time to think things through. He's kind of the comic relief version of Batman in that way. The next time we really see Usopp shine is when he and Chopper team up to battle with Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. Four. To say that Usopp and Chopper were getting mollywopped is an understatement. They were getting blasted by a barrage of exploding baseballs, beaten down, and Usopp was even dragged through stone walls and pulled incredibly quickly into Mr. Four's baseball bat. But the whole tone of the battle completely shifts when Miss Merry Christmas insults Luffy, and more or less says that even if Croco Boy didn't kill him, he would never become the king of the pirates because he's so weak. The smoke around Usopp clears, and you see him there, just totally devastated. Bent-nosed, covered in blood, and a vacant look on his eyes. But then Usopp says, there comes a time when a man needs to stand and fight. This is the time when his friends' dreams are laughed at. Luffy won't die. I know he'll be the king of the pirates one day, and I won't let you laugh at that. Then, just like against Chu, he uses not power but his brain to trick Mr. Four into swinging at Miss Merry Christmas and taking her out. Up until this point in the fight, Usopp was completely up against a wall, and in some cases even went through it. He was clearly outmatched and couldn't keep up. He was resigned to losing and barely able to stay standing, but as soon as his friend's honor was insulted, he immediately snaps back into reality and thinks his way to a win. He might not be able to fight passionately for himself, but when it comes to his friends and their dreams, he will always go beyond his limits. Of course, like I said earlier, things don't always go Usopp's way. In Water 7, he found out that the Going Merry was on its last legs. But luckily, the crew had a ton of money available. Unluckily, it was stolen by the Franky brothers. Usopp barges into their house alone to take them on and get the money back for the ship that he loves so much. After all, Kaya gave him that ship, and he loves her more than anything in the world. Now, this might surprise you, but Usopp versus like 50 dudes ended up with Usopp completely broken. Not just physically, but also emotionally. Eventually, Luffy and the others get revenge, but the damage was already done. The money was gone, but even if they had the money, the Merry was impossible to fix. When Luffy tells Usopp that he'll need to get a new ship, Usopp decides to leave the crew. However, not before challenging Luffy to a fight where the winner can keep the Merry. The fight is one of the best moments in the entire series for Usopp, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Usopp uses a level of resourcefulness that he had never used before or since in the series. The guy busts out flash dials, caltrops, shuriken, a bunch of different slingshot ammos, and just about takes Luffy down. A damaged Usopp, who was just destroyed by the Franky brothers, almost beats down a totally healthy Luffy. While Luffy's devotion is directly tied to his crew, Usopp's is connected to the people and things that mean the most to him. And while his crew is his family, he also sees Luffy leaving the Merry as a betrayal of this family, which allows Usopp to become a whole new level of badass for this fight. You might think that it's a little bit strange that he wouldn't put the same effort into keeping himself alive, but let's skip forward a few arcs to Thriller Bark. Perona might not be a terribly strong opponent physically, but she was devastating all the same. Her Devil Fruit basically allowed her to drain the positivity and self-worth out of people. Even Zoro, who I should probably remind you is freaking Zoro, is basically useless against her. She can immediately drop him to his knees and make him feel so depressed and lethargic that he can't even stand. But Usopp is a different story. She couldn't affect Usopp because he was already the most negative person possible, which on the surface was a funny gag, but think about it. Usopp grew up in a village alone with his mom because his dad basically pulled a Gene Freaks and just left when he was born. He was always excited by the idea of pirates because he believed that if a pirate ship came to his island, it would probably be his dad coming home. His mom ended up being very sick and passed away when he was young, leaving him all alone. And the last thing that we see her telling him is that she was always proud to have married such a brave man who dared to chase his dreams. And she asked Usopp to promise that he would grow up to be a brave man just like his father. We see him start telling lies to get the villagers' attention, and when he met Kaya, he would tell her these magical stories about his adventures around the world. He started the Usopp Pirates, and on the same basis, all of those three kids believed that he was this great hero. His mom loved his dad for his braveness, and he thought that if he was a great hero like his dad was, it would make people love him in the same way. But he wasn't a great hero. He was just some cowardly kid. And to be fair, all of the villagers loved him for that. We see that when Usopp leaves, they're all missing his antics, and they feel like something is missing from the town. But he doesn't know that. He was alone for so long that he desperately invented a person who other people would want to be around. And he tried to convince them that he was that person, even though everyone could tell he wasn't. And his whole goal now is to live up to being that person, to live up to the promise he made his mom. And he really does do his best to become that person when he is out at sea. But the incident at the Franky house broke him. Nami finds him on the street and he can't even move. He can barely talk. She rushes to him and tears are just flowing out of his face as he says that he can't face the others because he's so weak. And he couldn't protect the money that they needed to save the Mary. For all intents and purposes, if Usopp wasn't a main character, he would be dead right now. And the first thing he thinks about isn't asking for help or a doctor, it's just saying that he's weak and he let down his family. That he thinks that he's a disgrace. And that everything he worked for up until now amounted to nothing. And after hitting this emotional rock bottom, he finds out that the Mary couldn't be saved anyways. Not only did he just go through all of that hell trying to protect her, but in the end, it wouldn't have changed anything even if he would have been successful. So he lashes out. He leaves the crew and fights Luffy. And I know this probably doesn't matter too much, but remember, Usopp is 17 at this point. And I don't know about you, but when I was 17, I didn't always know where to direct my emotions, especially when things blew up on me like this. It was just misdirected anger and disappointment. But he knew that himself, and just like most teenagers, when they blow up on the wrong person, he's embarrassed by it. Again, he's alone, and just like last time, he invents a great hero to win people over. The imaginary life that he lived is embodied in Soga King, the hero of Sniper Island, who can defeat any opponent. He can snipe enemies with a slingshot at a distance that bullets can't reach. He can be confident and cool regardless of the situation, even when being Zoro's sword, and he has a damn good theme song. But most of all, he's so loyal and brave that he would even declare war against the world government for his friends. Usopp might be a comic relief character, but at this point, he hates himself. He doesn't want to be himself, and he doesn't think others want to be around him, so he invents Soga King to take his place. When Perona tries to make him depressed and feel worthless, it doesn't work, because he already embodies all of that. Usopp doesn't want to be himself so much that he genuinely created an alter ego that was everything he wished he could be. He doesn't understand or see that he's important to the people around him. He never got to see all the villagers missing him. He never got to see Luffy fighting with Zoro about asking him to join the crew again. To him, he left and no one ever followed him or challenged him to come back. At this point, he only sees himself as someone weaker than the monster trio, and someone who isn't worthy of being on the crew. However, post-time skip, we rarely see this side of Usopp. He slowly becomes more and more like the great warrior he wants to be, and as a result, we don't really see Soga King come out anymore. We don't see him doubting himself as much, and while he is scared a lot of the time, he's more than willing to believe in himself and put himself up to challenges. Even taking out Sugar and more or less being the one who saved Dressrosa from her abilities. Post-time skip, we haven't gotten too many iconic Usopp moments, and I think that's because we don't really see this contrast as much. Like, yeah, we have the Sugar thing, but when Usopp steps up, he isn't leaving his element as much. He is more confident now, so standing up to people makes more sense for his character. But before, when we see him fighting Luffy or telling Miss Merry Christmas to shut her mole mouth, that isn't who he is. That's making a big step for him, and it's so out of the norm that it's impactful and impressive, and it's a part of Usopp that I really miss. So to the question of who is Usopp, well, I think that's a very difficult question to answer. Because pre-time skip, he was someone who struggled with his self-image and tried to be as fun-loving as he could, and hated himself because he wasn't the great warrior that he wanted to be. And post-time skip, he kind of just has most of those issues solved. We still see him wanting to be a great warrior, but honestly, he's more or less there. It doesn't seem like he doesn't belong on the crew anymore. He's powerful and impactful in his own right, and he's useful, which is great for his character, but also leaves his scenes feeling less impactful than they used to be. And I think, at least to me, that's why pre-time skip Usopp is such an impactful and interesting character, but at the same time, post-time skip Usopp is someone who better belongs on the crew. But what do you guys think? Do you like pre- or post-time skip Usopp more? And what do you think about his character in general? I'll be talking about Nami next, probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, so keep an eye out for that, and let me know what you think of Nami as well in the comments. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I do try to make these slightly different view from the normal discussion on their character. I don't just want to tell their whole life story, but about personality traits that are definitely relevant but often downplayed. A big thank you again to Jonathan, who has easily been one of my most supportive subscribers forever. Remember to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel for more anime content, and until next time, remember to stay excellent.